unlucky, that definitely was the main reason why they lost.
Yep. All right, Mike. So we talked a little bit of NFL. Now it's time for the first of two Ritz's Rambles on this edition of the Strictly Business Podcast. Take the first one away.
All right. Well, I guess a little foreshadowing here because we're going to talk about the FIBA World Cup for the USA basketball team, which happens to be coached by my all-time favorite guy, Coach Mike Krzyzewski, coach of my Duke Blue Devils. Haters going to hate. And we'll talk about one hater. There's an article written on Yahoo Sports. Can you pronounce the guy's name, Johnny?
I cannot. Nope.
It's not Wojciechowski, but we'll just call him Adrian. And he writes an article about how Coach K has an unfair advantage by coaching for the USA team, for the national team, saying that he has a leg up in recruiting and how people see Coach K and this gives him an unfair advantage against other coaches. So I have so many things running through my head right now, which is why I needed two rambles, which you'll find out later on the podcast why I need to. But first thing is, for me, in the article, if nobody has read it, he mentions how only Coach K is really mentioned, and Jimmy Boeheim, the head coach.
I was going to say that. Yep.
He is also an assistant coach. So it was really directed at Coach K, although Jim Boeheim was mentioned. But I kind of find it odd that Coach K was really the main one mentioned when the guy directly below him is Jim Boeheim, and he's doing a lot of the things. He's traveling and doing the same things as Coach K. And if you're going to say this one thing about Coach K, you got to say the same thing about Boeheim, right? Two ACC coaches. And then my main point is that the main point in the article was that Coach K goes and talks to the select team, the under-19 select team, once every time he coaches in the Olympics or FIBA World Cup. So, every 2 years he goes and does a speech to these 19-year-olds, and he says that is an unfair advantage. I don't think the 10 minutes that he does to talk to these guys gives him an advantage, to be honest. They bring up the fact that Coach K landed Jahlil Okafor, who's going to be a freshman this year, and he was at the camp when Coach K made the speech, and it says it gave him an unfair advantage for Jahlil Okafor to go to Duke. But they gloss over the fact that Jahlil Okafor is from Chicago, and if you look at Coach K's track record, if a good kid is from Chicago and Duke's recruiting him, 9 times out of 10 he's going to Duke. Coach K has a lot of Chicago roots, and he lands Chicago players. That's just how it is. But my main point is, the head coach of the under-19 select team is Florida coach Billy Donovan, and coach is Shaka Smart from VCU. Not once is that mentioned in this article. And my point is, Coach K isn't even coaching the kids that Coach K is trying to recruit, that everyone else is trying to recruit. If anything, it would be Billy Donovan who would get the unfair advantage because he's already coaching these players before they go to college. So wouldn't you think that if someone was going to have an advantage, it would be Billy Donovan and Shaka Smart? And I'm not saying, now I'm not naive. I obviously think that people see Coach K and he can say, look, I coach the best players in the world. That's clearly something that you can say that is on his resume that not too many people have. But I will say, how did Coach K get to become the USA national basketball head coach? He is the winningest college basketball coach of all time. That he earned that job because of previous success. So it wasn't like Coach K was struggling at recruiting, then gets his job for the USA basketball team, and all of a sudden he's getting the best recruiting classes in the nation. Coach K's always been a good recruiter, has always got the top guys, and frankly, if you look at Coach K's track record since 2006, he's had one national championship in 2010. We've got bounced out of the first round 2 out of the past 3 years. So if anything, he's had more success since before he was the coach of USA basketball than he's ever been when he was the coach. So I just have so many problems. There's so many holes in the story that I just really needed to get out, and it really made me mad. And the last thing I'm going to say is Coach John Calipari came out, and he was first kind of agreeing, saying that Coach K gets an unfair advantage, which if anybody is not in the place to talk about unfair advantages in recruiting, John Calipari, all the violations that he's got at Memphis and at St. Joe's and at all these, UMass, not St. Joe's, and all these and banners taken down, and not to mention John Calipari still managed to get the top recruiting class, and he's the Puerto Rican national basketball head coach, with which he landed one of the top recruits this year who played on the team. So I just find John Calipari a hypocrite. He came out on Twitter and said that he is behind Jerry Colangelo and Coach K and Jim Boeheim, kind of backtracking his words a little bit. But just there were so many problems in this story that I just really needed to get out, because a lot of the blame was on Coach K. And the last thing I will say, this is quite the ramble, I apologize, but the last
it's a good one.
That was mentioned was the fact, I don't know if you saw this, Johnny, but when Paul George got hurt, that horrific injury, there was a picture of Coach K in the hospital consoling Paul George. And the guy, Adrian, I wish I could pronounce his last name, in the Yahoo article, said that was staged. So anybody who was around the situation, including Coach K himself, including Jim Boeheim, including Paul George, all say the same thing, that it is utterly ridiculous. Coach K wasn't even allowed into the hospital because there were so many cameras outside the hospital. Coach K said he had to go through the back door, and he was in the hospital with Paul George, his family, Paul George's girlfriend, and he said that his parents, Paul George's parents, took that picture, and Paul George's sister put that picture of Coach K consoling Paul George on Twitter. And Adrian from Yahoo said that he believes that picture was staged to show how good of a guy Coach K is, and that this is all a publicity stunt to get players to come to Duke. And I can't disagree with him more. I'm not going to say that it's not an advantage, but I'm saying that this guy was a stud before he was the coach of USA Basketball, and there's a reason why he's one of the winningest coaches. He is the winningest coach of all time. And there's just so many things wrong with this article, and I don't know too many people that agree with this guy. I really don't.
I don't know anyone who agrees with him. I mean, in regards to your Paul George comment, or the comments made by this reporter, Laura Keeley, who's a Duke beat reporter for the Raleigh News and Observer and Charlotte Observer, she got a quote from Coach K that she posted on Twitter. And Coach K said, "If you want to think that I use Paul George, you are a bad person." So that's his response to that. Short, sweet, and simple, and 100% true. And also, Coach K was quoted as saying, "We recruited a lot of really good players before I coached the United States team," said Krzyzewski. I'm reading from a CBS Sports college basketball article. Krzyzewski referenced Grant Hill, Tommy Ebeker, Johnny Dawkins, and others from the Duke past. Krzyzewski went on to say, "In fact, a lot of them have their jerseys retired. A lot of them have been National Players of the Year. I don't think anybody I've recruited since I've been head coach of USA has been National Player of the Year." And that goes to your point that there's been less success since he started coaching this USA team. And sure, it gives him somewhat of a leg up, don't get me wrong. But the fact of the matter is, Coach K, his name before he started coaching Team USA had leverage to it that no other coach had.
And the last thing I'm going to say is John Calipari also said that nobody would turn down the USA basketball job if it was offered. So
exactly.
So then if Coach Cal gets this job, then he's kind of shooting himself in the foot, because then everyone else will say, "Oh, well, Coach Cal's the one that's getting the unfair advantage." And he's the guy who's having these NBA scouts come to the Kentucky gym and open gyms, and everyone's trying to figure out how any of this is legal. So, I just really had a problem with this whole thing the past day or so with this article and people's reactions to it. Just really, really ticked me off, Sanko.
Yeah, and Boeheim actually commented on Calipari's frustration. He said that it's a concern that he raised it, referring to Calipari. That particular case he mentioned, he said he thinks it's an advantage. He got the number one recruit in the country. It's a little bit disingenuous of him. I like John. We get along fine. He feels Mike is getting an advantage. make that argument, but Duke isn't getting any better players than they ever have. So, I mean, Jim Boeheim obviously disagrees with Calipari, and Calipari, as you mentioned, has backfired, or has I don't want to say backfired, what's the word I'm looking for, retreating from his original comments. But, yeah, this whole article is shady, and it's wrong, and it's just not objectively correct. I don't understand. You mentioned that they don't even mention how good Coach K's recruiting is in Chicago. So it's just not objectively right, and it seems to be written with an agenda. I can't get by that thought in my head. That I don't know how you come up with the idea to write an article like this where you forget so many facts. You got to have some sort of mindset heading into it.
Yeah, I mean, the only good thing coming out of this article is it created a Ritz Ramble.
Yes, it did. It created a great Ritz's Ramble, the best to date.